Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I am so excited to share this series with you. I recently reread this and I reread this story quite often because it reminds me of kind of like the time where I kind of started really getting into BL. And for those of you who are over 25, you may know this one. For those who are under 25, you probably don't know this. Um, so this is definitely one of the more OG kind of Japanese manga BL stories that are out there. It was really popular when it came out, and this came back out in 2013. So I was reading this when this came out. That's kind of giving you a bit of a ballpark of how old I am, but I did read this back in 2013, and I went through a period of time where I couldn't remember the title of this series until about like 8 years ago. I went on Reddit and I asked if anyone could identify it, and one person was able to do so. So there's a couple of you OGs out there still, so shout out to you guys. But I love this story. And as for the tags for this story, there's no abuse. Thankfully. Oh my goodness. There is no abuse. It is just pure strange smut. It is a very strange story, but it is a good story nonetheless. So this story follows two people. Haruya is the bottom and Hito is the top. So Haruya works as a prolific prostitute. He works out of one of those host clubs, and at the beginning of the story, they are in high school. So, yes, make of that of what you will. I know that we don't get stories like this really like that anymore. So, it's strange to kind of talk about this because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, what? But back then, this was normal. This is what all your mangas kind of looked like back then. They were really weird topics, really weird dynamics, but that's kind of what makes these stories fun. So for the new BL readers, this might seem a little bit off-putting, but for the older viewers, I'm sure you guys can kind of resonate with what the time was like back in 2013 when you were reading BL. So, Haruya again works as a prostitute and he has a crush on Hito. And he turns out that he actually went into prostitution because he has feelings for Hito, but he doesn't want to ruin their friendship because they've been friends since childhood. So, what Haruya kind of does to connect with Hito is that he allows Hito to paint him. So Hito is a huge painter. He's really big into the arts. And so Haruya essentially agrees to be his model. So you kind of go through the first chapter of Haruya kind of sleeping with men and being an escort and whatnot until Hito is like, okay, I need another session to continue my oil painting on you. And Haruya is like basically nude in this painting. So after they kind of separate after their little painting session, Haruya goes to go see a client and decides that he's actually going to go stop back off at the school and bring Hito some donuts. Oh, what these donuts had done to him. He was not prepared, but as he walks into the art studio that Hito is finishing up his painting on, he catches Hito jerking off to a painting of him and ejaculating all over the painting. I can't tell you how much this scene has lived rent free in my brain. It has truly haunted me for the past 12 years. It will randomly pop into my brain. I don't know why. I think just because it's such a strange scene to kind of behold as a reader. But Hito is just going full mask off, jacking on into the painting, and Haruya is like freaking out, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And Hito just goes full confession mode. Hito is like, I've had feelings for you. Every time you leave our painting sessions, I jack off onto the painting and then cover my semen with the painting color. And so Hadia not understanding and like cannot even process the situation, runs away, runs back to his like host club and just tells his host buddies what happened. And they're all trying to console him, saying, "Oh, Hito's an introvert. He's a really conservative kind of man. That's why he's doing this." And they eventually convince Haruya to go talk to Hito. So Haruya decides to go also full mask off and just shows up to Hito's house, starts banging and kicking his door down basically until Hito opens the door, in which Haruya bursts into the room, throws Hito onto the sofa, takes out his dick, and just like essentially puts Hito's dick into him, like right there, right then. And they do eventually have sex, and then Hito starts crying as they're having sex and is saying, "Oh, you should know that, it can't just go in that way. It just doesn't work like that for men. But, the only reason it was able to go in is because I'm a prostitute." And Hito, for some reason, interprets this interaction as a challenge to him. And Hito's like, "Oh, what are you saying? Are you just saying that you're more experienced than me?" And then Hito just like fucks the shit out of Hatter. Oh my god, I love these two so much. And so they just proceed to have sex. They have this whole beautiful conversation about getting into a relationship, and then we get like a time skip. So now they're in college and they open their little cute little college life with Haruya being under the desk and giving Hito a blowjob in the middle of the classroom. And essentially, they just kind of go on with just this really like healthy, active, outdoorsy kind of sex life until Hito starts to try to paint again. But because he was somebody that tried to essentially express his feelings through his paintings, he lost the ability to paint. And as a result, Haruya essentially decides that they need to abstain from sex. And Hito essentially is like, "Okay, but I don't like want you going back to your host club because we're like not having sex. Like, you're a prostitute. You're used to sleeping with men every single day. How are you going to handle this?" And Haruya is like, "No, I'm not gonna sleep with men anymore. Like, I'll just be like an escort minus the sex now." And Hito is like kind of not believing this, but he's going along with it anyways until one day after their classes, Hito kind of catches Haruya being a little bit of like flirtatious with this other client from the club. However, Haruya is like not really interested, and this client of his is trying to like kiss up on him. And Hito sees this, freaks out, grabs Haruya, and takes him to the park and fucks him with this bear like keychain and starts degrading Haruya, saying, "Oh, because you're so used to taking dick, that how could I believe that you weren't sleeping around on me? You're so used to having sex with men every single day. There's no way that you're not doing this." And essentially just fucks him with this bear like thing. And Haruya is like crying but also enjoying it. Haruya gets off and essentially shows his semen to Hito and is like, "It's thick. I didn't fuck anybody." And then Haruya just kind of goes on this huge tirade saying, "I've been waiting for you. We've been abstaining from sex for you because you can't paint," and all this nonsense. And Hito decides to take him into, those like child slides because currently they're at a kids' park. Yes, this went down at a kids' park. Unbelievable, right? So Hiro decides to take Haruya into like one of those like cave-like slides and essentially just fucks him right then and there. And that is basically the end of the story. They kind of just live happily ever after, I guess. I'm not too sure. But oh my god, is this story crazy? I freaking love these two so much. Like, I just can't express to you how much I love these two. Like, it is such a crazy scenario to find yourself in that you have your best friend, your childhood best friend, jerking off to you on a painting and then covers it with the paint. That is wild. That is so crazy. And pretty much like after that, it's just a cute little flashback story to back when they were in middle school and they kind of realized that they had feelings for each other. And then they just have a bunch of sex, basically. That is the story. It is 3 chapters long. It is super cute. I like these kind of weird stories. Again, it just gives me like nostalgic rereading this because again, I read this when I was younger. I loved it when I was younger. So if you're into these kind of like freaky stories, just let me know. I have so many. I have probably read more than 3,000 BLs in my time. That's just like mangas and manhwas. So I have tons of these little out of pocket stories that are short but sweet but cute and are relatively healthy. I'm going to say relatively healthy. Not all of them are, but this one was cute. Again, I just can't get over the painting scene. That forever will live rent free in my brain. I can't help it. It just is what it is. So that's going to be it for this video, and hopefully you guys kind of enjoy these little cute stories. If you do like this more of like a summary, let me know and I can definitely share more of these. Anyways, bye and see you guys next time.